Welcome back, students. Today we are going to finish describing what happens at the end of the cell cycle. So we left off at the end of mitosis, by which time the cell has successfully formed two identical nuclei. But that cell cycle is not yet complete. What is still left for the cell to do? First, the whole cell has to finish dividing so that there are two complete cells. It will do this by continuing to pinch in the center until it has divided all the way through. So here, right in the center where it has started to pinch in, it will continue to pinch in until it is actually pinched all the way through the cytoplasm. Second, the chromosomes have to finish uncoiling so that they are returned to the loosely wound form they started in, which we had called chromatin. These two processes, the finishing of dividing of the cytoplasm and the chromosomes completing their uncoiling, occurs during cytokinesis, the final phase of the cell cycle. Finally, we have made two complete but identical cells. However, recall that when these two cells are first made, they are going to be smaller than their normal size. So the next thing that must happen is that the cells, here we go, cytoplasm is divided into two separate cells, our chromosomes are uncoiled. What must happen now is that the cells must grow to their normal sizes. When does that occur? Remember that cytokinesis was at the end of the cell cycle. So these new cells, which are small, are at the beginning of their own cell cycles, which means that they have to be in their own interphase. So as these cells grow and develop into their normal, mature adult selves, they are in their own separate interphases. From here, the cell cycle will continue through the same steps that had occurred for the original cell. All right, let's summarize. There are a few things I would like for you to remember and keep straight about all the processes we have discussed over the last 3 videos. The first is that mitosis is the division of one cell nucleus into two nuclei. One cell nucleus into two nuclei. This is distinct from the process of cell division or cytokinesis because in cytokinesis, the cytoplasm is dividing to make two separate cells. So in the first process, we're making two nuclei. In the second, we're completing the division of the cytoplasm, so we actually have two separate cells. They do occur one after the other, and together they make up M phase. The second thing I'd like for you to remember is that the two nuclei formed in mitosis are identical to each other. They're identical to each other, but they are also identical to the original nucleus that they started from. This is because before mitosis, during interphase, we replicated the DNA so that the new copies would match the original copies and each other. Finally, remember that the original cell, along with its original nucleus, no longer exist. They are gone. And that is because the original cell was used to make the 2 new cells. So at the end, we have 2 cells. We do not have 3 cells. I'd like to end this section with a short discussion of a question that will bridge us from this section into section 3.2. Here's the question. If all our cells have identical nuclei, and therefore identical DNA, why don't all of our cells look exactly the same and act exactly the same? For example, if we look down here, we've got 2 cells. We've got a neuron and an epithelial cell. That's a fancy name for a skin cell. If you look at them, they are vastly different shapes, and they work to do different jobs in the body. You would find your neurons in your brain sending messages and information throughout the body. And then you'd find epithelial cells on your skin forming a protective layer to keep the insides of the organism safe. So, these cells work to do different jobs, and yet they contain the exact same instructions, because every cell in your body can be traced back to the original cell with its original set of DNA that it started with. So, to understand how they can look and act differently when they are working with identical DNA instructions, I want you to imagine a metaphor of actors in a theater. As you know, several actors are needed to put on a play, just like there are several cells needed to make the body work. On the first day of rehearsals, each actor will get the same script. However, just because every actor has the same script, it doesn't mean that they all do the same thing. Each actor reads and performs only the lines related to his own part in the play. In the same way, every cell has the same copy of DNA instructions as the other cells do. But each cell will use only part of the DNA instructions to do its job. This is illustrated in the diagram here. When this generic cell here, in fact, later on, you're going to learn that generic cells that don't have a job yet are called stem cells. Okay, so we've got this stem cell, and it's divided to form 2 new cells. But according to this diagram, this cell will eventually become, it will differentiate or develop over its interface to become a neuron, and cell number 2 will become an epithelial or skin cell. So, why does that happen? It's because if we look at the contents of the nucleus, the DNA that each nucleus has is the same. However, this cell may be using that gene, while this cell is using a different gene. Okay? Because they're using different genes, even though they technically have, if we call this gene A and gene B down here, they both have gene A and gene B, but only the neuron uses gene A, and only the skin cell uses gene B. Okay, that's all for chapter 3.1 on the cell cycle. Do your last Quizmodo for the section, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.